June 1944, Camp Hereford, Texas. The dust swirled around the ankles of the young Italian woman as she stood transfixed at the fence line, watching a phenomenon she had believed existed only in American cinema. A genuine cowboy, leather-faced and silent, guided his chestnut quarter-horse in fluid motion around scattered cattle. "Vero, cowboy," she whispered to her companions. "A real cowboy." Across the American Southwest that summer, 89 Italian women, captured members of Mussolini's Servizio Ausiliario Femminile, would confront a reality that contradicted everything fascist propaganda had taught them about American artifice. They discovered a nation where cowboys weren't celluloid fantasies but everyday workers, where horses weren't movie props but essential tools, where the mythic American West wasn't Hollywood fiction but living tradition. These simple revelations, the authentic skills they witnessed daily, would systematically dismantle fascist ideology more effectively than any Allied propaganda program. The mathematics of cultural authenticity were being written in leather and dust, in practical horsemanship and working cattle, revealing an American identity that rendered Italian misconceptions not patriotic truth, but manufactured falsehood. What began as amazement at American cowboys would evolve into complete psychological transformation. The women of Mussolini's auxiliary forces had been trained to provide support services, communications, medical assistance, clerical work, to Italian military operations. Following Italy's surrender in North Africa during May 1943, Allied forces captured approximately 100,000 Italian military personnel, including these 89 female auxiliaries. Military records confirm that these women, many from middle-class Italian families with limited exposure to rural life, had been assured that American cultural symbols were merely Hollywood inventions. Cowboys, particularly, were described as theatrical fabrications created to mythologize American history. Instead, within weeks of their transfer to Camp Hereford in the Texas Panhandle, they encountered genuine cowboys going about their daily work. The camp, covering 720 acres of flat, windswept terrain, was surrounded by working ranches where cattle operations continued despite wartime pressures. According to camp documentation, female prisoners received housing in wooden barracks with private rooms, electricity, running water, and dining facilities that served 3 daily meals, conditions surpassing what many had experienced in wartime Italy. From observation platforms near the perimeter fence, Italian women could observe neighboring ranch operations, cattle drives, horse training, equipment repair, conducted by authentic Texas cowboys. Military records note multiple documented instances when prisoners expressed disbelief that these workers were not performers hired for their benefit, but ordinary Americans performing daily tasks. One auxiliary nurse, documented in camp reports, initially insisted that the horsemen must be actors performing for the prisoners' observation. "The Americans are staging this," she reportedly told the camp interpreter. "No country has real cowboys anymore." When assured that these were simply local ranch hands, her worldview visibly shifted. "Then everything we were told was false," she concluded. This fundamental disconnect between fascist characterizations of American cultural symbols as hollow fabrications and the lived reality of Texas ranching traditions created cognitive dissonance that camp authorities recognized as more effective than formal re-education efforts. The Italian women who arrived, believing cowboys existed only on movie screens, were beginning an unexpected journey into American authenticity that would permanently transform their understanding of both nations. The Mediterranean heat shimmered across the North African coastline as Italian auxiliary forces surrendered at Tunis in May 1943. For the 89 women of the Servizio Ausiliario Femminile, capture meant uncertainty rather than the anticipated American brutality fascist propaganda had promised. Within hours, these women, communications specialists, nurses, and administrative personnel, found themselves under Allied protection, processing through temporary camps where American military efficiency immediately contradicted expectations. According to Allied military records, female Italian prisoners received separate facilities with privacy considerations absent in male detention centers, immediate medical assessment, and rations identical to those provided to American female personnel. USS West Point, a converted luxury liner, transported the female auxiliaries across the Atlantic in August 1943. Naval logs document that Italian women occupied staterooms rather than converted cargo holds housing male prisoners. The ship's refrigeration system, 6,400 cubic feet of cold storage, maintained fresh food throughout the 11-day crossing. Most remarkably, the vessel's galleys served pasta, prepared by Italian-American cooks specifically assigned to accommodate European dietary preferences. For women who had subsisted on increasingly restricted rations during Italy's North African campaign, this culinary consideration appeared inexplicable. Ellis Island processing introduced the Italian women to American organizational capacity. Immigration records confirm that within 72 hours, all 89 auxiliaries received complete medical examinations, clothing appropriate for their destination climate, and orientation materials translated into Italian. One auxiliary captain later testified to the International Red Cross, "We expected intimidation and propaganda films. Instead, American authorities provided factual briefings about our legal status and what to expect in Texas." In April 1944, camp administrators approved limited riding privileges for prisoners with previous equestrian experience. Military records showed 12 women qualified under supervision of mounted guards. The program, initially approved for physical exercise benefits, evolved into cultural exchange as Texas riding methods were formally taught. Sessions limited to 60 minutes weekly became eagerly anticipated highlights, with waiting lists for participation. Statistical reports indicate 2,800 supervised riding hours completed before program conclusion, with 0 security incidents, testimony to the program's successful implementation and its psychological benefits. The Italian women who had once viewed horsemanship through military doctrine were experiencing a fundamentally different relationship with horses, one based on partnership rather than command, function rather than ceremony. By autumn 1944, security assessments determined that Italian female auxiliaries presented minimal escape risk, allowing implementation of limited work release programs. Military Directive 43-7692 authorized supervised employment beyond camp boundaries, primarily in agricultural support roles. Records indicate 37 Italian women initially participated, assigned to 7 local ranches and farms where labor shortages had reached critical levels. At the Summers Ranch, 12 miles northwest of Camp Hereford, 5 auxiliary nurses with agricultural backgrounds assisted with vegetable harvesting, 861 pounds of produce daily that supplied both civilian markets and camp kitchens. Women working at the McAllister operation sorted wool from 3,200 sheep, essential textile material for military production. These positions, paid at standard prisoner rates of 80 cents daily, provided Italian women unprecedented access to authentic Texas rural life. Sunday church attendance created more significant community integration. Camp transportation logs document weekly convoys to 3 local parishes: St. Anthony's Catholic Church in Hereford, Sacred Heart in Amarillo, and St. Mary's Mission serving Hispanic communities. Each week, approximately 65 Italian women attended services alongside local residents, a religious connection transcending prisoner status. Father Michael Considine at St. Anthony's arranged bilingual prayer materials and introduced Italian women to parish families after services. These structured introductions, fully documented in compliance with Geneva Convention protocols, evolved into meaningful cultural exchange. Local hospitality contradicted fascist warnings about American hostility. The Hereford Ladies Auxiliary organized a Christmas gift program providing personalized packages for each Italian prisoner. Hand-knitted scarves, homemade cookies, small toiletries, and handwritten notes. The Amarillo Daily News from December 18, 1944 reported, "Women from enemy nation welcomed as temporary neighbors rather than adversaries by Texas. Families who recognize these young ladies as victims of circumstances rather than threats to security." This civic generosity, neither required nor expected, created profound impact on prisoners' perspective. Cultural activities flourished as restrictions relaxed. Camp records document a joint concert in September 1944 where Italian women performed traditional songs while the Hereford High School choir responded with American folk music. An art exhibition in November displayed watercolor landscapes by 3 auxiliary members alongside works by local painters. The camp theatre hosted weekly film screenings where prisoners viewed American westerns with particular interest, now comparing Hollywood depictions against the authentic ranch operations they had witnessed. These activities received front-page coverage in the Hereford brand, which published a series titled Our Italian Guests, featuring respectful profiles of the auxiliary women. Romance inevitably developed despite military regulations. Camp security reports document 14 inappropriate attachments between Italian women and local men, primarily ranchers' sons, agricultural workers, and 3 instances involving military guards. While physical contact remained prohibited, correspondence monitored by censors revealed deepening relationships. One letter from Lucia Bertoli to Hereford resident James Thornton, preserved in military archives, stated, "In Italy, they told us Americans were uncultured barbarians. How strange that I would discover more genuine kindness and respect here than I ever knew at home." Military authorities, recognizing potential diplomatic complications, typically responded by reassigning involved personnel rather than punishing prisoners. Religious commonalities created unexpected bonds, particularly between Italian women and Texas Hispanic communities. Shared Catholic traditions, though practiced with regional differences, provided familiar structure. During Easter 1944, Hispanic families from St. Mary's Mission invited 27 Italian women to traditional celebrations. The resulting cultural exchange introduced prisoners to Southwestern Catholic traditions while allowing them to share Italian religious customs. These connections, built on spiritual foundation rather than political alignment, proved particularly meaningful for prisoners questioning previously unexamined fascist principles. Censored letters home revealed transforming perspectives. Military intelligence analyzed 1,243 pieces of outgoing correspondence between June 1944 and May 1945, noting significant shifts in content and tone. Early letters emphasized hardship and displacement. Later communications increasingly mentioned American generosity, Texas landscapes, and newfound friendships. One passage, highlighted in intelligence summaries, captured this evolution. "The Americans I have met bear no resemblance to our leaders' descriptions. They are not our enemies, but simply people with different customs, living in a land of staggering abundance. I wonder what other lies we were told." These private reflections, never intended for propaganda purposes, documented genuine transformation of worldviews through direct experience with everyday American life. Repatriation orders arrived at Camp Hereford in August 1945, initiating a process many Italian women now approached with ambivalence. Military records document 17 auxiliaries who formally requested permission to remain in Texas. Applications ultimately denied under Geneva Convention protocols, requiring prompt prisoner return following hostilities. Transport manifests from October 1945 show 89 women departing from Galveston aboard the USS General Brooke, the same number that had arrived 2 years earlier, though returning as profoundly changed individuals. Camp Commandant Colonel James Whitfield noted in his final report, "These women arrived as confirmed fascists and depart as inadvertent ambassadors of American democracy, transformed not through indoctrination, but through simple exposure to everyday American life." Post-war Italy greeted returning auxiliaries with bombed cities, food rationing at 1,200 calories daily, and economic collapse. Women who had grown accustomed to 3,400 daily calories in American captivity encountered bread lines, black markets, and infrastructure destruction. The contrast proved jarring. "In prison we ate better than free Italians now do," wrote former auxiliary Maria Conti to Camp Hereford staff in correspondence preserved by military archives. "My family doesn't believe my stories about ice cream and unlimited bread in Texas. They think American captivity damaged my mind." Cultural transmission flowed from returned prisoners into Italian society. Fashion influences appeared first. Western-style shirts adapted for women, leather accessories inspired by ranch equipment, hairstyles modeled after Texas women encountered during church visits. Music followed, with American country songs taught by camp guards now performed in Roman cafes. Former prisoners introduced recipes adapted from camp kitchens, simplified versions of Texas chili, cornbread, and pecan desserts modified for available ingredients. These cultural elements, transmitted person to person rather than through mass media, created authentic connections to American life that commercial products couldn't replicate. Immigration statistics reveal the most concrete impact. Between 1949 and 1955, 23 former auxiliaries returned to the United States permanently. 14 as wives of American servicemen, 9 through standard immigration procedures. 7 specifically resettled in Texas communities near their former detention. Antonia Vespa, who had worked sorting wool at McAllister Ranch during captivity, returned in 1950 to marry the owner's son, eventually managing 15,000 acres of their combined operation. Census records from 1960 identify 47 American children born to these former prisoners, creating generational connections between nations recently at war. Formal reunions documented continued relationships. In 1970, the first official gathering of former Camp Hereford personnel and prisoners brought 14 Italian women back to Texas. Local newspaper coverage described emotional reunions with families who had hosted them at church functions, former guards who had supervised work details, and cowboys who had demonstrated ranch operations. Subsequent gatherings occurred in 1985, 1995, and 2000. Each smaller as participants aged but emotionally significant for those attending. The Hereford Museum of Western Heritage established a permanent exhibition in 1990, From Enemies to Neighbors, featuring photographs, correspondence, and artifacts donated by former prisoners and camp staff. The collection includes Maria Lombardi's notebook, containing detailed sketches of Western saddle construction, Sofia Bertoli's recipe, adaptations of Texas dishes for Italian ingredients, and Elena Romano's scrapbook documenting 40 years of correspondence with the Amarillo family who had hosted her for Christmas 1944. These materials, professionally archived and regularly exhibited, preserve a unique cross-cultural exchange born from wartime necessity. Statistical analysis confirms the program's significance. Among Camp Hereford's Italian women, 26% maintained lifelong correspondence with Texas contacts. 32% incorporated American customs into their Italian households. 25% reported their children studied English specifically to connect with their mother's experiences, and 14% eventually emigrated permanently to the United States. One comprehensive academic study concluded, while representing less than 0.1% of total Italian prisoners held in America, these women created disproportionate cultural impact through their unique position as female captives in masculine Western culture. The transformation of Italian auxiliary women through Texas cowboy culture represents history's unpredictable paths. Enemy prisoners arrived expecting Hollywood fabrications, but discovered authentic tradition. They anticipated hostility, but found community. The women who initially exclaimed, "Wow, real cowboys!" in disbelief returned to Italy carrying genuine understanding of American life, becoming reluctant but effective cultural ambassadors. Their story demonstrates that sometimes understanding between nations develops not through diplomatic channels, but through simple human connections: a shared meal, a Sunday church service, or the mutual appreciation of a well-trained horse working Texas rangeland on a summer afternoon.